All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm your host, Mike Ham. We are here in Morristown, New Jersey today with Marisa Sweeney at Be Well Integrated Health Services. Marisa, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. Well, great to have me here interviewing you. So I'm really excited. I've taken a couple, not classes here, but a couple classes that you've done at the brewery, which are always cool.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so there's been two, and I've done both. And
awesome.
I plan on doing the next one.
There's one in July.
Yeah, right. Yeah, July. Yeah. So this might actually even post after that. So we'll have to look for like the next one then. But okay, cool. So I want to learn a little bit about you first. I mean, I know you kind of, but for the people listening, we'll get to know you a little bit more. So born and raised in Jersey? Are you from Jersey originally?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Where?
I grew up in Brick.
Oh, all right.
So my parents are still down there. A lot of my family is still down there. I went to Brick High School. I graduated in 2002, which feels like an eternity ago. 20 years ago, actually, as I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I moved to I went to Montclair State University in my undergrad, and then I met my husband at Montclair State University, and he's from Denville, so we just kind of ended up here.
Okay.
So I've been in Morristown now for like 12 years, something like that.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that feels like an eternity. I feel like I've been here forever.
Yeah. And thoughts on Morristown?
I say that in the best kind of way. I love Morristown. I love it.
Yeah.
Being a business owner here and also living here, I guess as long as I have, which maybe for some isn't very long at all. I know some people in town are like 5th, 6th generation Morristown.
Yeah.
I love it. I feel like really connected to people here. I feel like there's a great sense of community here. It's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I've only been here for 2.5 years, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, most of that was during COVID and you couldn't go anywhere or do anything, but still love it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a great spot.
It's a challenge, but you get to know people real fast,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. So let's do a little bit of a professional background. So obviously you have Be Well here. So what was like the professional background that eventually led you to start Be Well?
So I majored in nutrition at Montclair State University.
Okay.
And then there's this whole postgraduate internship, and you become a dietitian. You have to sit for the state exams, like this whole process. And right after that, I actually graduated in 2008, which was like right when the economy went into the shitter. Am I allowed to curse?
Yes,
is that okay?
Yeah. Everyone always curses and then is like, oh, am I allowed to do that? And I'm always like, yeah, it's totally
okay,
fine.
I'm just making sure. And so everybody told me initially, and it was my thought, that I wasn't going to get a job anywhere. So I just applied to anywhere under the sun, which mostly are like hospitals and clinical places, which wasn't what I really had in mind.
Sure.
But I was just so desperate to actually start getting paid for like all this work that I was doing, and especially after this like grueling internship.
Yeah.
That I ended up getting a job at Holy Name Hospital, which is in Bergen County. It's like 6 miles away from the George Washington Bridge. It's like way up there.
Yeah.
And it was great. Like I liked working there mostly because I liked the people that I worked with. But by the time, especially for a dietitian, like anybody working in nutrition, by the time you're working with somebody and they're already in the hospital, it's like, it's almost too late. I mean, there's definitely a place for it, absolutely. But to work with somebody a little bit further up the line before they land themselves in like an acute care situation, more of like a preventative kind of scene is where
proactive
it's most
rather than reactive.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So I wanted to start my own private practice. It's like just one-on-one nutrition counseling. It sounded like this big kind of like unattainable thing at the time. I had only been a dietitian for 2 years, but like, I don't know, there really is no like, when do you start a business like that? There are some people that start it now, like right out the gate, like as soon as they take their exam and pass.
Right.
But, and my husband is just like, why don't you do it? Like, and like, I didn't really have a good answer for that question. I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe I should. But I also had a non-compete with this hospital I worked with. So I was working like full time, like 8.5-ish like hours a day over there, Monday through Friday, and then some weekends. And then at night, I would drive all the way out to Morristown just because it was outside the county lines. And he worked in Morristown, and right next to him was this temporary office building where you can rent it for like a day, a month, 6 months, a year. So it was like real low commitment. I was like, all right, let me like dabble in this and
dip
see.
your toe in the water.
Exactly. And see if it's something that that might be doable. So it was kind of grueling for the first like 2 years, I would say. And I also have never taken like a business class ever in my life. Like I had no experience. I mean, I had to take like macroeconomics. It's like that one core class that everybody has to take.
Right. But what'd you actually learn? You know,
nothing
I had to take that
prepares
too.
you.
You know, I got nothing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Nothing that actually prepares you. for doing something like this, for like,
Right.
building a business. But you kind of figure it out along the way. And I even like signed a lease to that one place, which I'm pretty sure they just cleaned out a janitor's closet for me because it was it was smaller than this office.
Yeah.
But like, you don't actually need anything more than that. Like with
Sure.
nutrition counseling, it's very conversational and it's just like a table and 2 chairs and you're golden. Like,
Right.
you kind of don't need anything else.
Yeah.
So it's a very like low startup cost business, which is also great because I had no money back then.
Right.
None.
Yeah.
And both of our parents, like my parents and my husband's parents, like neither one of us like come from money. So I was just like, let me try to get this off the ground myself. And it worked. And I was shocked that it worked because I was almost like waiting for it to not in a way, you know? And when you go out on a limb and you kind of try something like out on your own, there's a lot of self-doubt there, at least for me anyway. I guess I can only speak to my experience.
Yeah.
But it started to really work. And there was this one doctor group. Actually, the only marketing that I ever did is that I sent out a mass letter, like snail mail, like postage and letters. And but that's what I did. And it was just like an introductory letter to like any medical professional that I can find in the neighborhood that might just send me people, that might just send me referrals. Anticipating that like 85% of them were just going to crumple it up and throw it away, which is probably what happened, maybe even more. But I sent like 500 letters out, and this is before I was even in my office space. I signed the lease. 3 weeks later, I was going to move in. And this one doctor group in particular called me, and they're like, hey, we are 1 building down from you. This is like across the street from the hospital is where I was.
Yeah.
They're like, we're like 1 or 2 buildings down from you. You should come in. We just want to send you patients. We're not looking to take a piece of anything that you bring in. We'll do your scheduling and everything. But if you come over here and see patients at our location, like that's kind of a value add for our people here. So like that's all we would need you to do. And it was like literally a building or 2 down. So I was like, this is too good to be true. But I went to the meeting anyway, and like sure enough, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And we kind of grew along with them. Like they were kind of like a nice little boosters. I was trying to get off the ground.
Yeah.
And they made up always like the biggest kind of percent, I guess you could say, of the patients that come in here.
Yeah.
And but it was growing otherwise too. Like we were in network with all the medical insurances. So for whatever wild reason, somebody thought they needed to see a dietitian. They just looked up to see who was in network, and there I was. Yeah. So it kept it interesting, to say the least.
Yeah,
but the more that I saw people coming in that wanted a lifestyle change, you know, because that's what people are coming in here for.
Yeah.
The more I realized how multifaceted that really is. Like it's not just, and people sometimes come in here thinking that it is just, if I just change my diet around, so many things will just kind of fall into place. It'll be like almost like a domino effect, or like it'll, you know, everything will fix itself.
Yeah.
Which is a nice thought, I suppose, and you got to start somewhere when it comes to any sort of change.
You know.
But if you really don't look at the whole picture in some fashion or in some way, you're really doing yourself a disservice. And sometimes I'm not the person that you should be working with in that particular regard. Like my scope of practice is nutrition. Like that's what I do. Like I can meal plan. I can make it really specific to people's wants and needs and likes and dislikes, whatever your medical condition is. Come in here with your blood work. I can make it really specific for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not a psychologist, you know? And like at the time I wasn't a yoga teacher either. So, and I had no like license to be, or certificate of any kind to be like a fitness professional either. Like there's other people that you should likely be working with.
Sure.
And you can refer out all day long, and then people get the business card and they're like, yeah, thanks. And they throw it right in the garbage, and like nobody pays, or they lose it, and nobody really follows up or like pays attention to it, or maybe not ready for it.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of like birthed, if you will, the idea of this place.
Okay.
So I moved. It was a much bigger risk, actually, than when I first moved into my office to move into Be Well, or to expand into Be Well, because we had to get out of that like kind of stuffy medical arts building that nobody knew I was there unless like they found me. Like there's no like street presence, you know? It's just like, I think when you walk into any medical arts building, it's just like the marquee on the first floor.
Yeah.
So,
right.
So
just, like, look for the name, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah, right.
We needed a little bit more of like a town presence, I guess you could say, or like a community presence, especially if we were going to have a yoga studio. I thought that was kind of like a great place to start because it had like this mind-body kind of connection to it. It also is a very low cost, you know, method of fitness. Like you don't need heavy equipment in here. It's not like a gym.
Yeah.
Or even like a CrossFit where you need all this like equipment and stuff. It's like literally people come in here with their mats and there's a few props and that's it.
Yeah.
And I just felt like it would be a nice therapeutic extension of all the other stuff that I was trying to have in here also. So I just on Indeed.com, I started interviewing people to have a psychologist here. So I have a psychologist, we have a social worker, We have an acupuncturist now. We have a massage therapist. I'm like envisioning everybody's office in my head. That's why I'm looking this way to like make sure I'm not forgetting anybody.
Yeah.
And we have a yoga studio now and we have about 25 classes a week. We are a certified yoga school nationally, so people can become yoga teachers here if they want to.
Right.
So it's just kind of grown into this big thing.
Yeah. Just like by getting a closet in some temporary office space,
right.
basically.
Yeah. And I just saved up money over a couple years. I've never had like investors before. Like it's always been kind of like bootstrapping it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the short story, even though it may not have seemed very short.
No.
That's the short story on how I ended up here.
Yeah. Well, we needed to tell that story because we needed to figure out like what we're actually doing here, like why we're here. Is this the only location or do you have multiple locations?
So this is the main location.
Yeah.
Funny you should mention that because right before COVID, we actually, so that doctor group that I was talking about, as we grew with them, they wanted to buy Be Well. This is back in 2015. It was a year back and forth of negotiations. My heart is so in this place. This place is like an extension of me. Like that's how I see it. And in every way it is. So I wasn't quite ready to give it up. But I think they were kind of really surprised. They weren't making me a bad offer. So I think they were kind of surprised when I finally was just like after the 5th, like back and forth, I was like, or maybe 10th, I don't know. It was a lot where I was just like, I can't. Yeah, it was literally a year. And I was just like, I'm really sorry. And they were almost kind of like lightly threatening to pull their business from me if I didn't cooperate. Cooperate's not the word. If I didn't make a deal with them already, you know, they were sick of my shit.
Yeah.
And I was just like, I'm really sorry. I hate to lose you. I don't want to not work with your patients. They're amazing. I love your staff. I love everything about this place. But I'm not ready to give it up. And they were like, oh, okay, well then see you later. And it was a total bluff because like a month later, and I had already come to terms with like, all right, life's going to move on now. I have to find a way to keep it going. And this is just as we moved into the space that we're currently in, which is bigger, believe it or not, even though it feels kind of tight in here.
Yeah. Well, it's just,
than the smaller
office
space that we were in.
Right.
So I was just like, great, I'm moving into this bigger space and I'm about to lose like 30% of like my business. That
Perfect.
sucks. Yeah. But I was like, all right, I've been bootstrapping it since the beginning.
Yep.
I'm just going to keep on grinding. And like, you know, for the first like hard 7 years of Be Well, it was me working around the clock.
Yeah.
Like no life. My husband's like, you are never home. My relationship suffered, my mental health suffered, my physical, everything. But, which I suppose, you know, advice that maybe any business owner would get now is probably that's not how you do it. Yeah. But like in hindsight, I kind of don't see how it could be any different. Yeah. I think it's the thing that got us through COVID because we were so established that we managed to survive just fine. Yeah. And so anyway, I digress with that. But, remind me your question because my thoughts are all over the place.
Is this the only location that you have?
So, sorry. Here we go. So they were like, we'll take you on as they're like, here's another offer for you. They're like, we're going to take you on if you want it as our like national director of wellness services and build all of these wellness centers for us. And you can keep Be Well until at one point you're going to lose your mind and you're going to have to make a choice as to whether you want to stay with us or be with Be Well. So like 3 years went by where I was the director of wellness services and I staffed like about like 13, 14 wellness centers all throughout New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania. Okay. And I got it to a place where it was autopilot and I reached a point where it was getting too busy here at Be Well. So I'm like, I'm really sorry, but this is on autopilot right now. You don't need me, not nearly as much as you did over the past like 3 years. Yeah. So I'm going to leave, but thanks. And they're like, all right, fine. And about like a year later, they ended up getting bought by a bigger company that wanted to cut they cut a bunch of departments. So they wanted to cut all the wellness services and everything, all these wellness centers that I had built. Yeah. So they came up to me and they're like, listen, the wellness centers that you built like a year ago after, you've left and everything at this point, they are really, really integrated into our practice. This company that bought us, they don't understand that. They don't see like it's how much of a value add it is. Right. So they're like, we're going to give you all these wellness centers that you bought, and they're going to become Be Well locations if you want that, because you made them. It's all your staff, and you can kind of figure it out from there. Right. And as long as you kind of keep on working with our practice, that's all we really want. I was like, yeah. So literally, I know this is long-winded, but literally overnight, I went from having one location to 14.
Pretty good.
Which is wild. And people are like, how on earth do you manage 14 locations? And I was like, I built this years ago. Yeah. They were giving me a salary to do it. Right. It's really kind of sucks the way it happened because I had to tell all of my employees like the week right before Christmas that this was going to happen. It's just the way it all shook out. Yeah, I was like, oh shit, like I really didn't want to do it, but just because the timing was so horrible.
Yeah.
And I was waiting for a bunch of people to just quit, kind of like, forget it, you know, like this is, I just didn't know how people were going to take it, you know? And they also, I haven't been their manager in like a year. So like, who knows what happens in that time, you know, but everybody stayed. There was not a single person that left.
Wow.
And everybody became Be Well employees. And then we had 14 locations.
Amazing.
All owned by me. It's all my same staff. It was already kind of on autopilot. Like it did not take very long for me to kind of readjust to this short time that I was away.
Yeah.
So that's that. So we now have 14 locations.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That is crazy. Yeah. Amazing.
So that's how I got there. I feel like I had to tell that story so it made sense to go from 1 to 14 overnight.
Because I feel like my next question would probably have been, how'd you do that? You know what I mean? And that's how it happened.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly how it happened.
Awesome. All right. So we're going to take our first break of this episode. And then in the second segment, we're going to learn all about Be Well and the stuff you got actually going on here so people know, you know, because we kind of danced around it a little bit. But I feel like if you haven't figured out what they do here, you know, you're not paying attention. But so we're going to take our first break of the episode. So this is the Greensburg Garden State Podcast. I'm Mike Cam. We are here in Morristown, New Jersey with Marisa Sweeney at Be Well. We'll be right back. Hey everyone, Mike Cam here. I hope you're enjoying this episode with Marisa Sweeney of Be Well Integrated Health Services. To learn more about the show, myself, or to listen to all of our other great episodes, make sure to head to greetingsfromthegardenstate.com. And if you like what you hear, make sure you like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite listening platform. Now, back to the show. All right, we're back for segment 2 of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. So we're here in Morristown, New Jersey with Marisa Sweeney at Be Well. So in the first segment, we learned all about your background and kind of how Be Well got started.
Yes.
So in the second segment, we're going to learn a little bit more about if you're a first timer and if you've never been to Be Well, you don't know what it is, what goes on here. How does that, like, what's the process like? So maybe, so it's Be Well Integrated Health Services is the whole name. And we talked a little bit about the types of services that you offer here. Mm-hmm. But let's just do that again, kind of like broad strokes. What's offered here?
Yeah.
And what can people come to expect when they get in for the first time?
Yeah. So we have a whole team of dietitians now. There's 7 of us, and we have a mental health team. So there's 2 psychologists and a social worker. One is also a registered nurse. We have a massage therapist. We have a Reiki practitioner, which is like a little bit more of like an Eastern medicine thing. And
what is Reiki?
It's an Eastern medicine thing.
Okay.
Like it's kind of like an energy medicine kind of thing. Like there's a little bit of crossover with acupuncture.
Okay.
It's like a big philosophy here that like everything has to be really heavily researched and evidence-based.
You know, it's like I've never done this before. Sorry.
Oh, no, it's totally fine. Yeah. You're like me. I wonder if my phone's off. Yeah. I think it is. It's an Eastern medicine thing. Okay. It's like kind of like an energy healing. Some people are into it. Some people aren't. And there's has some crossover with acupuncture.
Got it.
So there's that. And then we have the yoga studio, which is also, we do like a whole bunch of yoga teacher training programs. So a lot of people come through here to get like nationally certified to be a yoga teacher. And we also have Reiki practitioner as well. So there's, we're certified schools in a few ways.
Okay.
And so people call here after usually going through our website and like checking us all out, usually, with an idea in their head. Like, I want to try this or I want to try that. Or sometimes they don't know what they're trying at all.
Yeah.
And sometimes they're almost like, help me. Like where do I even begin? Like, this is my situation. And I'm usually the person that talks to people.
Yeah.
When they call with those questions.
Unhealthy. Is that what it is?
For whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like, it's either, sometimes it's more of like a mental health thing. Sometimes it's a physical health thing. Sometimes it's both. Sometimes people are going through like a rough situation in their life. Sometimes people get bad news from a doctor, or like they don't like how their blood work came out. This is like 1 million reasons why people find themselves here.
Yeah.
Or they feel the need to just give us a call. And I usually kind of guide people with maybe where to begin. And nothing's ever pushy. Like, I hate the idea of kind of being a little pushy with like maybe a service that people aren't ready for.
Right.
Like, especially like, for example, like with nutrition counseling, because that's what I do most. Like, the marketing we do for nutrition counseling is zero.
Yeah.
We just don't. And like, I'm a little bit of a hippie business owner maybe in that way, but like, I don't want to solicit people. Come to me when you're ready. Like, I'm not going to, come to me when you're ready, because that's when the change, you have to be ready for a change.
Sure.
So that's kind of like the same kind of approach that I take with when people call. And usually when people find themselves in here, especially because we're all within like close quarters and we all, like all the health practitioners and the yoga studio and everybody here, like we all kind of work as like a cohesive team. So maybe they find themselves here through, for example, like nutrition counseling, but then they get to meet like Dr. Christine right across the hall because you can't not. You walk right by her office and she's right there and she's going to say hi to you as you pass by.
Right.
And you're like, oh, well, she kind of seems nice. And now maybe people are a little bit more open to something along the lines of mental health, or you have to walk by the yoga studio to get to the bathroom. It's like things like that.
Yeah.
So having all these services under one roof, like sometimes people just kind of find their own path, which works out great because that's also like an intention that I was hoping to have. Like people kind of taking the wheel and figuring it out for themselves. But I guide people too.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then, so people do come here just to like take yoga classes.
All the time, yeah. There's some people that just come here for one service and then they leave. There's plenty of those people.
Right.
But some people find themselves, like there's some people that come here for nutrition counseling and then they'll get acupuncture and then they'll go to a yoga class. Like there's some people that spend all day here.
Right.
So it's a mix. Yeah. And whatever people feel they need, they can take.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's basically like, so if you find yourself having the questions, like not really sure what you want, you basically give you a call.
It's usually me.
Yeah.
It's usually me that people talk to.
Right.
Just because it's me or like one of my managers. There's probably 2 or 3 other people that they might actually talk to. Just because there's so much going on here, and like each is like its own like very specific discipline, that not everybody here is pretty well versed in being able to speak to what each can do for you.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
So there's really only like 3 or 4 people in which you might talk to.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's cool because then you're talking directly to you and you can help guide them. So.
And I like talking to everybody that's coming in. Like I want to connect with everybody that comes in here.
Right.
So
well, when you have like all these different things, I feel like it's better to know who's here. So then you'd be like, hey, you know, like I know you said this, but what about this over here? Like this idea to help you feel better, to be well.
For sure.
You know?
That's exactly it.
That's how we got it. Awesome. So very cool. So like when you're working with the other people that are, you know, here in your office, so like you said, the psychologist and the acupuncturist, the massage therapist. So I feel like there's got to be like a lot of collaboration on putting together plans for people.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time. And some of us take insurance, medical insurance, and some of us don't.
Yeah.
So if we can make it less expensive for people by going through their insurance, we do. So it makes it a lot more available to people to like kind of bounce around from one practitioner to the other.
Yeah.
And everybody here, like all the health practitioners, have been working here for a minimum. I want to say the person that's been working here the shortest has been here for at least 6 years.
Wow.
So we've all become really good friends. I don't micromanage anybody. Like it doesn't feel like I'm anybody's boss necessarily, and I wouldn't want it to be that way. I want to keep this like kind of everybody on the same level team approach, and it's just worked. It's just worked really well. Which is great because it starts kind of like with how we work together to better serve the people that come in here.
Yeah.
So it's good.
Yeah. You know, it's funny, like until I actually started like doing my research on Be Well, I was just like, oh, it's just one of the other yoga studios in town.
I know.
But it's clearly like way more than that.
It is way more than that. But I think a lot of people assume that, mostly because like when you look at our social media and stuff, it's like all yoga stuff and it's not anything else. Just because everybody's so busy. Yeah. Like everybody's so busy at the moment that I start like promoting a little bit, or I get my manager to like promote a little bit of like acupuncture on social media, my acupuncturist is like, what are you doing? I don't have the time for this. Same thing with mental health, like especially over COVID, forget it. It's like impossible to get in with anybody. Yeah. And it's never our intention to turn anybody away. We don't want to turn anybody away, but like we simply... The thing that needs the most marketing, if any marketing at all, is the yoga. I got to tell you, if we didn't have that yoga studio, we probably wouldn't even have a social media account. Like there's not even, or it wouldn't be a very active one. Right. Like there's no need. Like the yoga kind of needs a little bit of like constant new things coming through, like new classes, new workshops, new teachers, new things. Events. And it's also kind of like a nice little segue for people to kind of like lightly find themselves here. Exactly. And be like, oh, I didn't know you did all this stuff. Yeah. Exactly. It's it also kind of gives this place a pulse, because otherwise we're all behind closed doors with appointments. Yeah. It's all one-on-one stuff. Right. So, and it also is a great community outlet. Like we can take our yoga classes outside of our walls and we can collaborate with nonprofits in town, and we can do a lot of donation stuff, and it's a way to kind of bring people in otherwise. So it's really kind of lent itself in that way.
Yeah, very cool. So we did mention events, and so maybe like connected, but kind of not really connected, but I'll just ask it. So you also run the New Jersey VegFest.
Yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about that and what that is and how it got started?
Yeah, the VegFest has a much shorter story than Well does. So I've been a vegan for like past a little bit over 10 years. And 10 years ago, the only other vegan in town that I knew was this woman named Kendra. She now owns that place called Feasty Vegan. It's over on, it's like on the other side of South Street in Morristown.
Yep.
And we talk about this day as though if we didn't bump into each other on the street, we would not be doing this. It just was like a serendipitous, weird thing where the stars aligned. So I was walking one day down Washington Street going one direction, and she was going the other, and she saw me, and she was just like, oh my God, ran across the street. And she was just like, I'm so glad that I ran into you, because I had this idea of, she's like, and she's not wrong, being a vegan in New Jersey sucks. There's like nothing around to eat. It's awful. And she wasn't wrong. Yeah. Like back then it was like, if you go to a restaurant, it's like, here's your plate of romaine lettuce, or here's your basket of French fries, which isn't half bad. Yeah. But like, I mean, the restaurant experience is ruined for you if you're a vegan.
Yeah, my dad did like a 18-month vegan stretch, and I remember going out to dinner, and he basically like got just like plain whole wheat pasta. Yeah. I was like, that looks disgusting.
Right. It's not even worth like the $30 you end up paying for it too.
Yeah.
So she was just like, why don't we try to do everything we can to pull together some sort of like vegan festival that will promote like whatever the small businesses are that are trying to make this plant-based thing happen at like really a grassroots level, or like like right at the foundation of it, because there was nothing.
Right.
And she's just like, maybe we could pull together some community around it too, to see, because back then there was zero community around any sort of vegan or plant-based anything back then. There was nothing. So and we thought like both her and I, in like our own separate ways, were already doing a lot of community stuff in Morristown. So I was just like, cool, let's like do it in the Hyatt or something like that. Wouldn't that be great? And then we thought it was just gonna be Morristown based, but the more we thought about it, I was just like, there's nothing in Morristown. I don't even think we could pull together an event if it's just Morristown people. Yeah. Why don't we try like maybe Morris County? And she's like, why don't we do the whole state of New Jersey? Because there's literally like, if we're trying to pull together an event, it's vendors and who's even vegan out there was like pretty scarce. Yeah. So it took us 2 whole years of us just cold calling people and emailing people, anybody that even had a vegan option on their menu from all over the state of New Jersey. And people are like, who are you guys? We had no track record. Like people would just hang up on us, like almost like they didn't trust us. I don't know why, whatever. Yeah. But we had no track record, so I get it. Sure. And we finally pulled together an event, and it was in the Hyatt in Morristown, and we called it the New Jersey VegFest. And this back in 2016, I think. I have the sticker up there. I think it was, October 2nd of 2016 was our first one in the Hyatt. Oh, this one here. That's it. Yeah, that's the postcard for the first one we did. And we only did social media marketing. This is another business. I had started it with no money, none at all. Right. And she doesn't have any money either. And we had nothing. And but the Hyatt was pretty accommodating, and they're like, yes, like there's no cap on any tickets you sell as many tickets as you want. So we're like, great, that's exactly what we'll do. And we got 30 vendors, I think it was. We got 30 vendors. We were like, holy shit, we're gonna have an event. Yeah. Like we got 30 people over 2 years. It took us that long to get 30 people. And we sold 200 tickets in the pre-sale. We're like, this is amazing. And we were so excited that we were actually going to have an event. And then on the day of, 2,000 people showed up.
2,000 people showed up to the Hyatt? 2,000
people showed up to the Hyatt. And like the Hyatt was just like, what are you guys doing? We were like, you told us
that you no can
say. Yeah, you told us. We weren't expecting this, but we kept on saying on social media, like, buy tickets at the door, no big deal. They weren't like a higher price. There was no incentive. Yeah. People were just waiting to see what they were doing that weekend, and then I guess decided to come. Whoa. So it was packed, and it was wild, and you couldn't move, and it was a total shit show, but it was awesome. We were like, oh my God, New Jersey is ready for this. Yeah. So we asked the Hyatt again. We're just like, hey, can we do this next year? We thought we would spill into Headquarters Plaza to like accommodate the space. And they're like, we can't accommodate you. Your event is like way too big for a hotel. You need to like maybe look somewhere else. So, and Kendra's from the Midwest, so she doesn't know Jersey too well. Yeah. And there really isn't, as we started to like just look around online, but like there really isn't too many big venues to have big kind of shows like this in New Jersey. There just isn't. You would think there would be, but there isn't. Right. So I said to Kendra, I was just like, why don't we try the Meadowlands? She's like, what is the Meadowlands? Like, she didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
And I was just like, it's kind of where the Giants play. I was just like, we can't afford this. I'm telling you right now, we can't afford this. I was just like, but I looked at their website and they had like a little online form. I was just like, let's just fill out the form and see if anybody calls us back. I didn't think anybody would. And the next day somebody did. I was like, I can't believe this is happening.
Yeah.
And they were like, yeah, come in, check out the space. Like, we would love to have you guys. And I was like, really? I kind of like, I didn't believe
am I
it.
being punked to like, what's happening?
Yeah, I didn't think it was anyway. So, so sure enough, we go there. And as we're walking through, I said to Kendra, I was like, we can't, this is a great day. Like, we're entertaining this and all. I was just like, whatever the price is, we can't afford it. And then they gave us the price that was half the price of what the Hyatt was offering us. Wow. And I was just like, this can't be real. And that was for 2 days.
Yeah.
And we were like, let's do this. So in 1 year, we took the event from like the Hyatt in Morristown, which was like a total disaster, to the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird because it was still like, so this is in 2017 was our first year in the Meadowlands. And like, it doesn't seem that long ago, but like back then, hardly anybody was vegan, and the plant-based was like just catching a little bit of mainstream kind of traction, maybe not even really.
Yeah.
And all of our vendors are like these new kind of startup businesses that are completely like passion run. And, it's a lot of people that are like, I make this amazing sandwich, I want to be part of your event, but they have no idea how to run a business. They're just like so into the plant-based thing that they don't care.
Yeah.
And so going to the Meadowlands was like terrifying for people. It was terrifying for us too. We're like, do we know what we're doing? We don't. Much like I was talking about how I've never taken business class ever in my life.
Yeah.
Now I'm an event producer. Like I didn't know where to begin.
Right.
Other than the one event that we threw in the Hyatt, that was crazy.
Yeah.
But sure enough, you kind of like learn along the way.
Yeah.
And I think we came up at the right time. Like, there was even a guy from Florida that owned a big Florida, like, vegan food festival. And he tried to get into the Meadowlands, knowing that was really kind of like the only place in North Jersey that you can go that would accommodate, like, an event to this size that we're hoping to have.
Right.
He called them a week after us, and he's just like, don't give those girls a contract, give it to me instead. But we had like 2 weeks built into the contract they gave us to like make a decision.
Yeah.
And the Meadowlands called us up and they're like, listen, if you don't like sign this contract soon, we have to give it to this other guy. And we were like, shit, and we lost all our bargaining power. And so we did it, and it was crazy. And then the Showboat in Atlantic City called us up, and they're like, hey, we see that you guys are on the event schedule for the Meadowlands. Why don't you come down here? I shouldn't tell this story. I'm going to tell it anyway. Kendra's going to be like, why the fuck do you tell this story? So the Atlantic City was just like, we see you guys. You should come down here. We're going to have you come here for free. Want to give you free space. Oh. And I was like, that's not true.
Yeah.
You're going to have me come all the way down to Atlantic City. It's not going to be free. And then he's like, no, really, it's going to be free.
Yeah.
And it was like the hotel manager of the Showboat, the property manager of the Showboat at the time. So he's just like, come down here tomorrow and I'll show you the space. So I like cleared my schedule. And on the way down, I said to Kendra, I was just like, what are we doing here? I was just like, are we going to go down there and they're going to murder us or something? Like, what? Nobody's giving away free space, especially not when we were paying in the Meadowlands.
Yeah.
And it was the Showboat at the time when we got down there. It was so freaking cool. It was so awesome. What used to be the casino floor, they like wiped away, but still all like the lights and everything, because they like lost their casino license back in 2018 with like the housing crisis, and Atlantic City like completely kind of went underwater.
Imploded. Yeah,
imploded.
Right. Yeah.
And so it was the coolest floor ever, like for an event, because it still had this like Atlantic City kind of feel and nostalgia to it. But it was just an open 100,000 square feet. And they're like, oh, by the way, we also now own the House of Blues that went out of business. And if you want to put speakers, or if you want to do like bands or live music in this monster-sized theater next door that was in mint condition still. Yeah. They're like, you can have this too. I was just like, why are you doing this? Right. Maybe I shouldn't have questioned it in hindsight, but I was just like, why is this free? What's the catch? Tell me what the catch is. Yeah. And they're like, there's no catch. There's no catch. But they wouldn't give me a reason. In hindsight, the reason was they were just trying to get people down there. Sure. And that event, so we ended up having the Meadowlands one, and then we had that Atlantic City one, which kind of like covered South Jersey, so it was like a good kind of anchoring to the other one. Yeah. That turned, like, we ended up having like 10,000 people there on our first event there. So It was wild. Yeah. We were like, holy crap. We went from like 2,000, the Meadowlands we maybe had 5, and then Atlantic City we had 10. We were like, holy shit. And it just seemed like sky was the limit at that time. Right. And then we eventually did it in Asbury Park Convention Hall, which is like a much smaller place. And like, so that seemed really balanced, and that's what we do right now.
Yeah.
So we have the North Jersey event in the fall, that's the Meadowlands. We do Asbury Park in the spring, and then in the summer we do Atlantic City. And that's what we've been doing for the past 8 years. COVID kind of steamrolled us real hard.
Yeah.
Really hard. It was just, thank God, like with Be Well, like there's a good portion of the services that go on here that can translate to online.
Sure.
Nutrition counseling, we already had like the system for it. We just started doing like Zoom consultations and everything. Same thing with, mental health and everything. But it's so Be Well floated pretty well, thank God. Like all of our yoga classes like went online and it worked. Like it was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Thank God, because like there's nothing you can do with events. It
right.
just sucked, and it was awful. And we prepaid all of our events because we were like really riding high, like the top of 2020. We were like on top of the world. Like it just felt, anybody that tried to open up little vegan events like the year before, like we were just the cream that rose to the top, and everybody went out of business, and we were just slaying it. It just felt like it, and it was so awesome. And then like the first event that we actually sold out ever was February of 2020.
Wow.
And it was like 3 weeks before the whole world just shut down. Yeah. And like so we prepaid all our events for like the next 2 years. We had vendors signed up for like the next 2 years. Like we were riding so high on ourselves, and then we just got steamrolled so hard.
Yeah,
and
but
then
we're back.
I'm back now. Yeah,
right.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
back
a redemption
now.
story.
It is a redemption story. But like all of our vendors wanted their money back. None of the event venues can like actually give us their money back. So like we just watched our account just like drain.
Yeah.
So it was tough. But yeah, it is. We are back now, which is really nice. We just had an Asbury Park event in May that crushed it.
Yep.
So I'm feeling good about it again.
And then you got, I'm assuming Atlantic City's coming up soon, right?
Atlantic City's in July, yeah. So we're kind of like in it right now with like the planning of it. But that Atlantic City event has always been really good.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's that.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So we went a little long on that segment, but
Sorry.
I don't care. No, it's totally fine.
And I said it was a shorter story. And in my head, I was like, oh, wait, there's this and there's
20 minutes later, and then we're all done with that segment. But no, it's totally fine because I asked about it. It's my fault. I asked the questions here. I'm running the show. So second break, our last break of this episode. So this is the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Ham. We're here in Morristown, New Jersey at Be Well with Marisa Sweeney. We'll be right back.
Hey there, Mike Ham again. Thanks so much for supporting the show. If you enjoy what you hear and want to help us keep the show going, head to buymeacoffee.com/GardenState. A $5 donation to the show goes a long way helping us travel around New Jersey, bringing you the best of what the Garden State has to offer. Again, that's buymeacoffee.com/GardenState. Now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back for segment 3 of this episode of Greetings from the Garden State. I'm Mike Ham. We're here in Morristown, New Jersey at Be Well with Marisa Sweeney. So in the first segment, we learned all about you and kind of how Be Well got started. In the second segment, we learned about Be Well and what someone can come to expect being a first-timer here. And we learned about VegFest, which was really cool to hear. But now, one of the things that you mentioned in the second segment was that you're very active in the community of Morristown, and I'm sure in other communities as well, because the vegan community is a community that you're clearly active in.
For sure.
So this is my favorite segment because it's the community segment, so we learn how people interact with their communities and vice versa, how the communities interact with the businesses and people that we have on the show. So let's learn a little bit about that. So what are some of the things, I know you said you do a lot.
I do a lot.
What are some of the things that you do that you're just like, this is awesome, I love doing this?
I love it all, honestly. Like as much as I love my businesses, I have like almost like a little bit, a slight more interest, if you will, in doing like altruistic stuff.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that's always kind of been an underlying thing. So, so I started the Morristown Mayor's Wellness Campaign. I was like appointed to be the president through the mayor. He had me build out a board and everything. My term is over. I've since passed it on. So that organization is still running. And we put together a huge community needs assessment to see like where the holes are essentially in terms of like services for mostly like the underserved, like in terms of like health, like there's all these different pillars too. So it was like, that was a really cool experience. And it really brought together a lot of like the bigger stakeholders in the nonprofits and even like some of the businesses around town and like some of the governments, so we'll work a little bit more cohesively.
Yeah.
So that was cool. So I did that. And I also, me and Mary Doherty and a couple other women started the Morristown Women in Business. So, which that was, I want to say like 5 years ago, but that's still like an organization that seems to be killing it right now. What else do I do? I'm a advisory board member for Sustainable Morristown. And I was a board member for United Way, which was also really great. I really love United Way. And I'm a board member at College of St. Elizabeth. And
You're like all over the place.
I'm all over the place. Yeah. I mean, before COVID, I was really like an animal with that.
Yeah.
But since it's kind of slowed down a little bit, and there was something kind of nice about having an excuse to like not be constantly doing something around the clock. So I'm not as active as I used to be, but I'm still pretty active. Like I'm the president. Well, actually, as of right now, I'm the past president. I'm the past president of the New Jersey Dietetic Association.
Okay.
So that's like the professional organization of all the dietitians in New Jersey. What else do I do? We partner with Grow It Green. Every Sunday, we do a yoga class that is essentially free or donation-based for Grow It Green Morristown.
Okay.
We did a summer solstice event for them. We do a lot of stuff for Grow It Green Morristown just because they do a lot of cool work.
Yeah.
But I do also think that I'm kind of driven to do it because, like, Be Well wouldn't be anything if it weren't for like the positivity that we've really gotten and like the love and the awesomeness that we get from the Morristown community. So I almost feel like it's a reciprocation that it's almost like our duty to do.
Yeah.
So we partner with Zufo Health Center a lot, which is like a nonprofit doctor group. They do amazing work. And they're not headquartered in Morristown, but they have a location. They're headquartered in Dover, but they have a location like right up the street here on Washington Street.
Okay.
And so we do like health screening days. They have like a mobile kind of health van that they'll park on the green. We'll do a lot of marketing for it. And anybody that walks by, like if you want blood pressure check, cholesterol check, like whatever it is, they have a bunch of little things that they can do for you. So we do a lot of work with them too.
Yeah.
I love Zufol. They're awesome. And that's really like I'm gonna have my master's degree in 1 week.
Oh, congratulations!
And then thanks. and then I start my doctorate program in this fall, in which like I'm like one of the things I'm going to be really focusing on is like kind of like altruistic public health. Like how can you create programs to kind of help the underserved? And
right.
That's kind of what I'm really and even doing my event in Atlantic City. The problems are so apparent, and that's just what you see on the surface. You know, they run so deep.
Oh, yeah.
It's considered to be a food desert out there. Mm-hmm. So, like, people are relying on, like, corner stores and bodegas to be able to eat, which is, like, all processed crap.
Right.
So, every time I'm down there, I'm like, how do we solve this problem? How do we solve it? Which is a much bigger problem than I alone can solve.
For sure.
So, like, I like the idea. So, I'm getting, actually, my PhD in that so I can, because I really want to start working in kind of, like, bringing people out of food deserts and making things more available and accessibility and things like that. Like I just have such a passion for it.
Yeah.
And Be Well right now as a for-profit does a lot of work to help that. But I think the more educated I am in it and the more immersed I am in that world, just the more impact I'll be able to have.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, like you're doing it now and then also learning more about it as you're doing it. So I'm sure it's just going to kind of keep improving. You know, not that it's not great already, because all the stuff that you said is fantastic. But also, like, I also like to sometimes hear the reversed relationship too. So obviously, like, you're very active in the community, and one of the things that you said, like the love and support from Morristown, is obviously really important. But maybe kind of take me like a little bit deeper with that. So maybe like, you know, how the community as a whole, whether it was just kind of all time supporting you and Be Well, maybe even like over the COVID pandemic and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And kind of how like the community maybe that you've built here or just the community as a whole has kind of supported you.
Yeah. You know, it's always been such a weird feeling, I think, because like I do view this place as kind of like an extension of me. This was all just like a weird brainchild, honestly. Like this isn't like there was no floor plan. This isn't like a franchise or anything. I just kind of created this from the ground up, like over the past 10 years. So when people like find themselves here, it like means so much to me. You know, that like everybody that walks in this door and then leaves, like, you know, they keep on coming back because obviously something positive is happening for them. So that's huge. So even over COVID, the fact that like people still supported us and came to us, but like even before that, like it's I don't know. I'm pretty overwhelmed with the amount of support that we've gotten from the Morristown community. And also like the Daughtys have been like unbelievable. Like both Tim and Mary have been unbelievable supporters of of Be Well, and there's just never been a moment, like even sometimes in being a business owner, there's always going to be like a roller coaster of emotion of like,
Sure.
oh my God, this is amazing, to oh my God, I suck. And like, it's like up and down. And like, whenever I've had those quiet moments of like, oh, I suck, like there's always been somebody here that just kind of gravitated to themselves. Like I told you, I don't really do much marketing.
Yeah.
So people that just kind of gravitated here that like lift me up in a way that they didn't even know that they were. Because
Right.
I'm like, well, this is why I'm doing it.
Yep.
So people, like even when this place was closed during COVID for 14 months, like literally nobody walked in this door except for me and like the occasional health practitioner to pick up their mail.
Yeah.
And that was it. And people still, like our members stayed with us even though, and they were paying the same price as though it were in the studio when everything moved online.
Yep.
And it was just pretty freaking amazing. Like there's never been, I will forever have imposter syndrome. I think I just always will. And like maybe there's a healthy dose of that. So it's not like I'm trying to escape it entirely, but like, but I almost feel like pretty undeserving, which also creates this like perpetual gratefulness for like just how much people love this place and then how much we send that love in return.
Yeah.
And that's through, I think, a lot of like the nonprofit stuff that we do, but I'll never feel like it's enough.
Yeah.
So.
But, you know, I do think it's cool because it's like I'm a big believer that the more like good you put out, usually the more good comes
100%.
back.
It always reciprocates.
Yeah. And it's not like, that's not obviously not why you do it, but I do think that there's something to be said for, you know, like if you have putting out a certain vibe, you attract that same vibe. You know
I think
what I mean?
so, yeah. Because people, I always say that there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
Like when it comes
enough sand in the sandbox.
There is.
Yeah.
Like every now and then somebody will ask me, not so much anymore, but like when I first opened, people are like, oh, how are you going to compete with all the yoga studios in Morristown? And I'm like, well, A, we're more than a yoga studio, like, but B, there's enough for everybody.
Yeah.
There always will be.
Yeah.
There are people that are going to gravitate here and be here and find themselves here for reasons that are maybe different from other people that find themselves in other places, and that's fine.
Right.
So, so that has been really cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
And I'll never want to like, I don't know. I never view myself as like in competition with somebody else. Like it's almost like, what's that phrase? When the tide rises, all the ships come in.
Oh yeah, yeah.
We're all in such close quarters here in Morristown.
Right.
You know, like if one person does well, that's only going to spread and like bring people to other businesses as well.
Exactly.
So it's all connected.
Yeah, no, 100%. All right, so if people want to learn more, where should they be going to learn more?
So Be Well's website is Be Well IHS. IHS stands for Integrative Health Services. It's much better than spelling the whole thing out.
Yeah, it'd be really long. It's like greetingsfromthegardenstate.com. It's way too long. But that's what we got. That's what we're going with.
You know, the reason why I kind of shortened it to Be Well, honestly, is because with all the services and all the things going on here, there's something kind of simple about just having it called Be Well.
Yeah.
Like there's like a simplicity to a lot.
Right.
So, but yeah, our website is bewellihs.com, and then the VegFest is just njvegfest.com, and that's also our social media handles on Instagram and Facebook. It's all the same.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then what's the address?
The address is 16 Bank Street.
16 Bank Street.
Yeah,
Morristown.
we're like the only people on Bank Street now.
Yeah, there's
When I
really not a
first
lot
came
going
here-
on Bank Street.
No, when
Yeah.
we first came here, it was like the Gorilla Fitness, which is now the CrossFit that's over on Dumont.
Yep, that's where I go. Yeah.
And there was a Simon Art Gallery, there was a Pilates studio, there was a whole bunch of stuff, but they demoed everything except for us. And like now there's like all these condos next door, but their front door faces Market Street.
Yeah.
And then they're supposed to be putting a hotel in. Who knows how that's going to go?
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. I think you told me about that, and I was like,
It's
oh, I
supposed
didn't
to
even
be a hotel,
realize
yeah.
that there was going to be another hotel here.
I think the project kind of got stopped when COVID hit because they were like, well, we don't want to put a hotel in now.
Yeah.
But so who knows where it's going to go? But you know, it's been fine. It's been really good. It hasn't slowed down anything here, or at least nothing that I felt. So
Yeah, no,
good.
it's awesome. Okay, so I will make sure that I put the websites, the social handles, all in the show notes, along with greetingsfromthegardenstate.com, my long website, or you could reach me at mike@greetingsfromthegardenstate.com, which I just got that, so I'm really pumped that I got
Sweet.
the business email.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's like next level, because having like a Gmail account, it's so like, you know.
But now you have the domain.
Yeah.
So it's official.
Right. Well,
That's
I've always
good.
had the domain, but I never had like the real email address. It was always
all right.
greetingsfromthegardenstate@gmail.com. That's too long.
Yeah.
But okay, so I'll put all that stuff in the show notes. So if you want to learn more about Be Well or reach out to the show, you could do that checking out the show notes. Marisa, thank you so much for doing with us
Thank
today.
you.
This was a great episode. Learned so much. It was fantastic.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So this has been the Greetings from the Garden State podcast. I'm Mike Cam. We were here at Be Well in Morristown, New Jersey with Marisa Sweeney. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Feel